You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Good books and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. Oh, it's another gorgeous day in the coffee shop. What can I say? The sun is shining. Oh, wonderful. And I want to talk books and writing. So let's take a stroll around and see who's got a book on their table. George Weinstein. And you've got Aftermath sitting here on the table.
Hey, Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing great as always.
Thanks for welcoming me to your coffee shop.
Oh, I am definitely a come one, come all type of person. So,
what would you like to talk about today?
Well, you're sitting there with a book called Aftermath, and it's got your name on the cover.
Yeah, this is my fifth book. This one's a mystery. Every time I sit down to write a book, it ends up being of a different genre with different characters. Men, women as heroes, children, adults. I'm all over the place. In Aftermath, it's about a woman named Janet Wright who inherits her estranged father's fortune, and it's following his murder. And she discovers that the person who is pinned with the crime is not the actual murderer, and digs herself a nice deep hole to get out of. And so that's the crux of the story, is her trying to solve the mystery and at the same time save her life.
Sounds fascinating. So what other genres have you written?
I like history, so I've written historical fiction, a piece called The Five Destinies of Carlos Moreno, about it's really forgotten U.S. history. Between 1928 and 1941, the government deported over 2 million people of Mexican heritage, but over half of them were American citizens. Oops. And so this is something that we weren't taught in schools. There's never been a TV show about or a movie or anything like that. Only a few scholarly works written about it. But I thought it'd make a good backdrop for a historical thriller about somebody trying to avoid that fate. So there was that one, Hardscrabble Road, probably my most popular book, is Southern Gothic and also historical fiction set in the 1930s, 1940s, and it's based on my father-in-law's childhood. When I got married, I got to meet my father-in-law for the first time, and I started writing down his fascinating stories about growing up dirt poor in southwest Georgia during the Depression, the child of a sociopathic bootlegger and a mother who had no interest at all in raising her kids. So he and his brothers pretty much raised each other during the worst time this country has ever had. So fascinating, blood-curdling, often shocking, and sometimes funny stories about his growing up days. And I compiled them and then fictionalized things, made stuff up, and turned that into a novel, Hardscrabble Road, which has probably been, again, my most popular one, the one that most book clubs gravitate toward. I call it my gateway drug. So lots of people discover me by discovering Hardscrabble Road first, and then hopefully go on to read my other things.
Both of those sound fast.
Thank you. I've also done modern romance. After doing Five Destinies of Carlos Moreno and Hardscrabble Road, I really got sick of having to have all my characters pee in ditches and outhouses. So I wanted to do something in modern times. So Caretaker's a modern romance about a ballerina who loses her leg in a car accident and has to reinvent herself, but also rewrite the rules of her marriage. And then Aftermath came out last year. Again, that's a mystery. And I just completed a draft of my new novel, a work in progress, that's a thriller. So again, a different genre. Something different every time. It drives some readers crazy and other readers like something different each time.
I think it's fascinating. So how do you get yourself to the time period when you're writing the historical? How do you make sure you don't make a mistake? How much research goes?
Oh, tons and tons of research. But the trick is to leave 95% of it out of your book. I think a mistake that lots of new writers make is that they want to use every bit of research that they've dug up because they've spent so many hours, days, sometimes years gathering all these notes. They want to tell you everything they know about the subject, which is death, especially in a novel. Nothing kills prose faster than info dumps by a writer. So I do tons of research and then I leave most of it out. It's mostly things that inform me, but readers really don't need to know. So I get frustrated when I'm reading a book and it's clear that the writer wants to tell you everything he or she knows about a topic rather than what you as a reader need to know in order for the story to make sense. It's all about serving the story.
I've heard it referred to as the iceberg theory. As the writer,
That's right.
You need to know every nook and cranny of the iceberg, not just what's visible above the waterline, which is usually about 10%, but you need to know the whole iceberg. And the reader
that's
only
exactly
sees
right.
the top 10%.
Even if it doesn't inform the story directly, it will work its way into the tone you use, just the things you choose to describe. It'll inform all of that. You had asked about fear of making mistakes, and that is a genuine fear of mine. Regardless of what I'm writing, whether somebody's handling a Glock 19, and I want to make sure that I don't make a mistake in how the character uses that. All the way to what it was like to grow up on a farm in Southwest Georgia in the 1930s, and making a mistake there about, the way you handled chickens and the insane rooster running around the property. So, yeah, every detail is a potential pitfall for the writer, and I sweat bullets when a book comes out, and I'm just waiting for that email from a reader saying, I bet you didn't grow up on a farm because you made these mistakes, boy, and then proceeds to detail them. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten those emails, but I live in fear of them.
Well, I'd have to say that I happen to be a thriller reader, so I will read anything, though, that if it sits in front of me long enough, including the cereal box. I've tried writing. It feels like punishment, so I just don't. But I'm the reader. I am a voracious reader, and nothing drives me crazy than when I see something and I know it's wrong. And I have reached out to some authors. But just to make you feel a little better, I want to tell you something about a #1 New York Times best-selling author. His name is Brad Thor. His first book, he didn't do all his research. And in recent years, he's written an article about all the mistakes he's made. And he owned them. He's like, I didn't do my research. I called the thing that goes into a firearm a clip instead of a magazine. I have since corrected that, and I have learned how to do the research so I don't make those mistakes again.
I have heard him talk in person, and he talks about that quite a bit because he knows there are writers in the audience who need to hear that, the importance of getting your facts straight and going to experts. One of the great things about Brad Thor is how many experts he's accumulated so that he avoids those mistakes now. And he's very frank about that. You're right. And it is important to own up to the mistakes, but even more important to surround yourself with experts so you avoid the mistakes in the first place.
I can only imagine what his Rolodex looks like. Anyway, so back to Aftermath. How long did it take you to write it?
That one took me about a year and a half. And each book takes a little less time to write because I've gotten a little smarter about this over the years. When I started out, I took a bunch of classes and a bunch of courses and talked to a bunch of writers. And everybody emphasized the importance of outlining before you start a story. And I rebelled against that because I thought, in my precious little newbie way, that if I outlined, I would then be constrained by the outline. It would straitjacket me, it would hamstring me, and prevent me from going wherever the story leads or following the characters on, whatever madcap adventures they started writing for me as they took over the story. You hear about that a lot from writers where a character will all of a sudden just take control of the story. And I thought, boy, I really want to experience that. And if I got this darn old outline here, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so the downside is that I wrote a lot of crappy drafts that went nowhere, or I would write myself into corners I could not get out of. And it wasn't until I started trusting the process of outlining, but allowing myself some wriggle room and allowing myself permission to then violate that outline that I started to write a little more efficiently. So now I write fewer drafts than I used to, and I write a little more confidently that I know where I'm going with the story because I've thought about it beforehand and I've documented it to some degree. But if something takes me in a different direction, as long as that makes sense, that's fine. What I don't want to do, though, is just sit down each day not having any idea, where my characters are going to go or where the story's going to go. That's often a recipe for really interesting writing, but writing that is ultimately unusable because it doesn't serve the story.
So I've discovered that there's, and I call them hybrid writers. They outline to the point where they know that plot point A has to happen, plot point B has to happen, and plot point C has to happen. But how they're getting from A to B and B to C, they have no idea. Would you fall into that category?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of friends who do screenplays and teleplays, and they call those beats. So I know what the beats have to be for the story to work. And I have a pretty good idea of when the beats will occur in the story. But the actual, mechanisms for getting from one to the next, as you said, I leave that up to my imagination, and that's really where the fun is figuring out how you're going to go from one beat to the next. I have some friends who do 140-page outlines for a 300-page novel, so the novel is half written in their outlines, and I see themselves often tie themselves in the knots, saying, well, I decided this was going to happen, so this is going to happen, even if it really doesn't make sense anymore because of other things they've written or new ideas they've got. So I like the hybrid process of deciding what the beats will be, but not how to get there.
Well, I'd say that puts you in excellent company because, and I don't know if you know this, that's actually the method that Brad Thor uses for his books.
Yeah, very good. Well, that is fine company. Proud to be a follower of his.
So when do you know that it's, as you're traditionally published, so when do you know that a manuscript is ready to send off to your publisher or your agent?
Well, I will edit a manuscript until I can't stand to look at it or go through it one more time. And then I will turn it over to some trusted readers. And most of these readers are also writers, but some of them are just people who have read all of my books faithfully and had me in their book club discussions, and people who have just demonstrated a real passion for the written word. And so I trust their opinions because they are, as you are, voracious readers. And so I will ask these beta readers to take a look and give me comments about the entire story. And I'm involved in a critique group. I've run one for over a decade, and I'll take chapters there as well. And then I will take those comments and distill them. I don't abide by every bit of advice I get. Sometimes people just get hung up on something that I don't think is important to a story. But if 2 or 3 people say the same thing, like, "Oh, this stuck out to me," then I definitely listen to those things and then revise accordingly. Then, when I've gone through that process, I will do a full read through one more time, because in the process of editing, one often introduces new mistakes. I have a friend who says for every 3 sentences you rewrite, you generally introduce at least two new errors. And these could be anything from typos to, "Oh, well, you forgot a detail when you were doing this edit that, now you've introduced a contradiction." So I'll go through and do a really close read at least one more time, sometimes 2, just to make sure I haven't introduced any new errors and that I've taken in and addressed anything that was a problem to these trusted readers. And then I get to the point where I can't stand the sight of it again, and then it goes to my publisher. And I'm in a difficult situation currently because I'm between publishers. I had to fire my last publisher because they stopped paying me the royalties that they owed me. So I am in search of a new publisher. I should say that I have a literary agent who is critical in helping me find that next publisher, and hopefully a better publisher than I had last time that I had found myself. So my hope is that by this time next year, I'll have a new publisher and a new book that will be coming out.
So are you always writing even when you're not working towards that published manuscript?
Absolutely. It's just the way my brain is wired. I've always written, and it's just what I need to do every day. I'm either writing something fresh or at least I'm editing something. And it might be sitting down and writing for 8 hours, or it might be editing for 90 minutes, just whatever I feel like, whenever I have time to do. I'm fortunate that I write full-time because I'm an incredibly lucky man who married a wonderful woman who, on my 50th birthday, said, "I want you to quit your job and be a full-time writer again." This is something I tried a decade ago and quit because I wasn't making any money writing. And she wanted me to get back to it. So for my 50th birthday, she said, "Be a full-time writer again." So that's what I get to do now every day. And it's a wonderful life. I'm married so far above me, and so fortunately, I can't believe my good luck.
Sounds like you've got the ideal dream job.
I do. I am a kept man who does all the cooking and the housework and all of that. So I'm a homemaker at the same time. I'm a full-time writer, but gosh, I can't beat this setup I've got. Incredibly lucky. I have to pinch myself every day because of my good fortune. Yeah. So back to your question, I write every day, even if it's not toward the current work in progress. I'm writing something, a blog post, or ideas for a new story. There's something that I'm doing every day that's creative.
One writer said they need to write almost like they need in water. It just has to be there every day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I know exactly how that feels. And it goes back to when I was a little boy. I was 6 years old, writing plays for my stuffed animals to act out, to entertain my brother and sister. So it's just something I have always done. And I guess there are born storytellers. My parents used to call me a born liar, which is really the same thing. Because as a little kid, I would tell lies when there was no penalty for telling the truth. I would tell lies just to see what I could get away with, how far I could stretch things before my lie became evident. So maybe it's a little wonder I'm a fiction writer today.
I think this all sounds fascinating. So did you grow up in a small town or a big city?
Let's see, mid-sized town, I guess population about 15, 20,000 in the middle of Maryland, halfway between Baltimore and D.C., in one of those strip mall towns, which really wasn't famous for anything, known for anything, and it was a really good place to leave. So, very, very boring childhood, but besides telling myself stories, writing these plays, starting to write short stories to entertain myself, there really wasn't a whole lot besides books to keep me happy. My favorite things to do on a summer day was just take a stack of books and lock myself away somewhere, away from my brother and sister and any distractions, and just lose myself in story and dream of one day when I'd be writing those stories myself, until I got to the point where I actually was.
That sounds fascinating. And the fact that writing is your day job makes it so much more incredible.
It's a dream come true. I think every writer's probably got a book that they can point to and say, this is the book that made me want to be a writer. And it's often one of the great books. In my case, it's not one of the great books, but it's certainly a book by one of the most prolific authors. Fans of science fiction will recognize the name Alan Dean Foster. And I remember when I was 8 years old, I pulled together my allowance because I'd seen a book cover that had captivated me. At this little drugstore in Laurel, Maryland, I bought a copy of a book called Ice Rigger. And it was a good story. It wasn't a great story, but it completely transported me to an alien world with fascinating, larger-than-life characters, and made me think, gosh, I wish I had written this book. It was just so much fun to read, and the characters were so captivating. It made me think for the first time, I wish I had written this, and planted the idea that maybe someday I would write a book that grabbed my attention and hopefully fascinated other readers. And I guess I was in good company there, because George Lucas read that book as well and asked Alan Dean Foster to ghostwrite the novel for Star Wars, and paid him a lump sum to do that. George Lucas's name is on that book, the novelization of his screenplay, but it was Alan Dean Foster who wrote the actual novel, and so not bad company.
I'd have to say that that's something I didn't know, that Star Wars, the novel for Star Wars, was actually ghostwritten. That's almost shocking.
Yeah, and Lucas, of course, had the whole, at least the first three movies laid out in his head. And so Ice Rigger takes place on an icebound planet, as the name might imply. And so Lucas was thinking about the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, and he thought, boy, this guy really captures a snowbound, icebound world really well. And so I got to get him to write Star Wars first, and then move on. But yeah, that's what grabbed his attention.
So, who's your favorite author?
Let's see. Currently, I read everything that Craig Johnson likes, that Craig Johnson writes, rather. He's an author who writes a mystery series set in Wyoming, with a character named Walt Longmire, who's a sheriff there, and in fact, his books have started to appear as a television show called Longmire. And Craig Johnson is one of those. He's the writer that I want to be one day, because I've gotten a chance to meet him, and he's such a fine person. He's just somebody you root for. When his books appear on the New York Times bestseller list, I celebrate, because he's not just a terrific writer, but he's a great guy, and his wife's terrific, and he's just one of the good people out there. So I always spend my money with Craig Johnson. I read everything Michael Connelly writes, so another mystery writer. On the thriller side, I love Daniel Silva, so I read everything he writes. And Lee Child, although this might offend some people, but I don't know how many times Jack Reacher can save the world and avoid any major damage to himself. So I still read Lee. I still enjoy Jack Reacher, but I think his 22nd one is coming out, and they're starting to feel a little bit like retreads. I think a good decision that Lee Child has made over the years is to not be constrained with a linear timeline for Jack Reacher. So he drops back and forth. Sometimes Jack's back in the Army as a military police, and sometimes it's current day and he's Sherlock homeless, wandering the country, solving mysteries and defeating bad guys. So I guess that's what keeps his work fresh and keeps me coming to it. Let's not talk about the movies with Tom Cruise, though.
I'm actually not a huge movie fan myself. The books are always better.
Yes. In fact, I have a T-shirt, a favorite T-shirt that says "Never judge a book by its movie."
Now, I will say sometimes seeing the movie, which it's rare, but occasionally my husband will drag me to a movie, and I'll find out that movie was based on a book. So you can guess whatever book that movie was based on is the next one on my to-be-read list.
Yep, and you're never disappointed by the book, I'll bet, in comparison to the movie.
I'm not. The movie can be a disappointment, but the book rarely is, because you've got so much more time in a book.
Yes, yeah, and you can inhabit the characters' inner lives, which is so hard to do in a movie without a clunky voiceover or, people telling you exactly what they're thinking. It just doesn't lend itself as well to that deep immersion in a character that you can get in a book.
Now, they say editing is slaying your darling. And
hold on. I'm going to take care of this dog one more.
No problem. All right, George, they say editing is slaying your darling. What do you do with those precious... First of all, with Aftermath, what was the one scene you had to take out that just you cringed, you really didn't want to take out, but you knew it was the right thing to do?
I think it was this back and forth bit of witty repartee between two characters. You get plenty of that in the story already, but in scenes that are actually advancing the story versus just me showing off about how clever I can make two people sound. There's a dated reference, but there's a playwright named Neil Simon, and all of his people who populate his plays are more clever than anybody you've ever met in your life. And back and forth, they're just like a tennis match of just incredibly witty repartee, and I found myself falling into that in a scene in Aftermath, and I was just so proud of myself because, gosh, these people are just so smart and erudite and funny, and it didn't serve the story at all. So it really hurt to take away what I thought of at the time as some of my best writing, and maybe word for word it was good writing, but it didn't serve the story, which made it the worst kind of writing. So it had to go. And I think that is one of the big challenges and really part of the maturation of an author is recognizing where something might work word for word, but doesn't serve the story. You got to let it go. You got to get rid of it. And you can save it in a file called "Great Shit I Had to Take Out," or, you just delete it. I have friends who have files where they just put all their wonderful stuff that they can't keep in the story, but they were so proud of, they don't want to lose. And then I'm not quite so sentimental. So I just copied over it and deleted it and move on with some twinge of regret because, I was really delighted with myself, but just got to go because it doesn't work in the story, and it's all about the story.
One interesting little thing, and I do beta read for a friend that writes high fantasy. So what she does with her outtake scenes, as she calls them, if it lends itself, she'll craft it into a short story and put it up on her website for her readers for free.
That's a great idea, and I'll pass that along to some friends of mine who are saving their stuff in files. That's a great reuse. I don't think I fall into having whole chapters that I need to throw out. Usually a little warning bell. I guess I've been doing this long enough. I get this little warning bell that says, I don't know what you think you're doing, but it's not helping the story. So, I'll usually avoid the pain of having to whack entire chapters. It's usually part of a scene that needs to go or just needs to be reshaped.
All right, well, we have reached the point, yes, there are bills, even in radio, where it is time to take the commercial break. So I'm going to pour George another cup of coffee, and we will see you on the other side.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your sites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
All right, I thank everyone for hanging in there with us while we paid those radio station bills. All right, George, we've talked a lot about writers and a little bit about readers, but what advice would you give to a reader who's searching for that next book to read, be it paperback, hardback, or ebook?
I think what we're all searching for when we're looking for the next book we're going to read is some emotional feeling. And it doesn't have to be something that brings us to tears or makes us laugh out loud. But we're looking for some emotional connection with a work, and I think those are the works that tend to stay with us. When somebody asks us, "Oh, what should I read next?" you tend to go to the books where you have had an emotional reaction, and whatever it is. They say that when we're children, especially very small children, we only really have 4 emotions: mad, sad, glad, and scared. And I think even as adults, those 4 emotions are the touchstones. Those are the things we go back to time and again for our most memorable experiences. So when it comes to writing, if you can find a book that makes you feel one of those 4 emotions, mad, sad, glad, or scared, that's going to be a book that resonates with you to a large degree. So it's what I look for when I'm searching for a writer I can connect with, and it's what I try to achieve in my own writing. Because if I can make a reader feel at least one of those things in any given scene, I know I've got them hooked, and they'll keep reading. And it's when my scenes don't have those emotional touchstones that I know I need to go back and completely rework what I've got, because it's not working. Because if I'm not feeling something, then my readers aren't going to feel something. So I brought your question back around to my stuff, but it's really that kind of thing we're looking for. I think regardless of the book we're choosing, we want that emotional connection.
And that's perfectly fine to bring it back to your books because, well, this is your episode of Coffee Shop. So have you ever faced the dreaded writer's block?
I'm not sure writer's block really exists. I think writers who run into that problem probably do so because they aren't sure where they want to take a story, or they're afraid of what they really need to do in a story, maybe afraid of doing the research that would be required so that their story passes the sniff test, if you will. It rings true to readers. And there are a whole host of ways that we writers get in our own way when we're writing, or when we ought to be writing and we're not. We'll tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm just blocked." Well, you're blocked because you're stopping yourself because you don't want to do the work required, or you haven't given this enough thought about where the story needs to go. You're not being true to your characters. You're throwing obstacles in your own path. So when that happens to me, when I recognize that, this has stopped working, and I think I'll give up this book, that's a red flag that I haven't done enough work to outline the story, to understand my characters, or to do the research or other work required to make a scene work. And you will see sometimes when you're reading a story, there's this big buildup to a scene, and then you don't get that scene. What you get is the aftermath of that scene. To plug my latest book, you'll get the scene that follows the big climactic scene, because the writer couldn't figure out how to write the big climactic scene. So he can take you all the way up to that point, and then he can tell you what happened after it. But he didn't want to do the work required to pay off all of the buildup. there is nothing more disappointing for a reader than to have that letdown of, I was with you all the way through the buildup, but then you cheated and you said, and then this happened. You imagine reading Silence of the Lambs, and Clarice Starling never does talk to Hannibal Lecter. You just get a recap when she's talking to her boss, Jack Crawford, afterward. Well, then he said this, and this happened, and this happened. You would be so disappointed you'd throw that book against a wall. But fortunately for all of us, Thomas Harris did the hard work of presenting us the really big climactic scenes.
Now, you have a love of helping other writers, and it involves either annual or semi-annual event called the Atlanta Writers Conference.
Yeah, that's right. Since about 2000, 2001, I've been involved in a nonprofit organization called the Atlanta Writers Club, which was founded way back in 1914. So it's over 100 years old. And I joined it because I needed help as a new writer, and I got that help through experts in the club and people they could point me to. And now I'm spending the rest of my days trying to pay that forward. So around 2008, I started the thing called the Atlanta Writers Conference, and we've done 16 of them now, and we've got our 17th coming up on November 3rd and 4th of 2017. And the Atlanta Writers Conference gives writers an opportunity to get their manuscript sample critiqued by literary agents and acquisition editors from the big publishing houses in New York. They can pitch their work to these people, get query letters critiqued, and for readers who don't know what a query letter is, that is how a writer introduces herself and her work to agents who she is hoping to get representation from, and to acquisition editors who she's hoping will eventually publish her work. And so the query letter is a very simple but incredibly difficult document to write that basically describes your work in the catchiest, shortest possible way, and tells the agent or editor a little bit about yourself. Very, very difficult to write. I know writers who would rather write a whole novel than to write one of these one-page query letters. So we have critique sessions where we help writers make their query letters bulletproof. Very education-oriented conference. We have Q&A panels with the agents and editors. We always have a workshop focused on the craft or the business. And again, it's just a way for me to pay this forward, all the help I got when I needed it, and to help launch other authors. And I'm really proud to say that over 24 of our participants, and we've had more than 2,000 people go through these conferences, and over 24 of them have gotten agents or publishing deals as a result of the conference. One of my best friends, a writer you'll be hearing much more from, named Roger Johns. He's a thriller writer. He got his book deal because of the conference. Another friend of mine, Susan Crawford, who writes psychological suspense, she got her book deal because of the conference. Becky Albertalli, who writes young adult fiction, got her book deal because of the conference. So, I'm seeing people's dreams come true as a result of this conference, and nothing could make me happier. Nothing could fulfill me more than to know that I've played some small part in helping these people's dreams come true. Their literary dreams. So that's why I do it. And that's why I put hundreds of hours in it, unpaid, but not unrewarded, because it's a reward every time I see somebody succeed, or somebody tells me that they learned so much, and they they're moving forward in their journey toward their writing goals and aspirations. And what could be better than helping somebody else achieve their dreams? So that's why I do it. and that's why I'll keep doing it until they ask me to stop.
I think it sounds like an amazing event. Now, I'm not a writer. I don't even play one on the radio. I have freely admitted writing to me is torture. Put me behind the microphone, please. But for all those whose dreams you have fulfilled, I think and that have learned a lot and grown, I think it sounds like a fantastic event not to be missed. So do you have a lot of people come from out of town?
More and more. Though it's called the Atlanta Writers Conference, and it's sponsored by the Atlanta Writers Club, I would say 15% of our participants are now from out of town. And I used to call it a regional event, and then became a national event as its reputation grew. And now it's an international event. At the May conference in 2017, I had somebody come from Jamaica and another person from Germany. So, we're starting to touch Europe. Asia's a little far away. I can't imagine somebody's going to come from Asia, but it's possible. So it's certainly now an international opportunity where people are willing to come all the way stateside just to have their shot. And really, besides having my writer friends' dreams come true, the other thing that really tickles me is that all of our agents and editors come to us through referrals now, so I don't have to go out and beg anybody to participate. We have such a good reputation in the industry that agents and editors are constantly recommending other agents and editors to me who they think will do a good job, which takes some of the guesswork out of it for me, because I know I'm getting high quality people. So that's very gratifying.
That must make your job a lot easier.
It does. In the old days, I was just scrambling and begging people to participate, and now I have the luxury of occasionally saying, well, my list is booked up for the next year or two, but I'll let you know when I have an opening. So that's really good.
So do you have a bookstore at this event?
We do not have a bookstore, and the reason we don't, we get asked all the time by people who want to be a vendor and sell things to our participants. The reason I don't want to do that is because I don't want to make this competitive in terms of, oh, well, you're selling so-and-so's book, but you're not selling mine. Or, you let this other company come in and, sell their wares, but, you're not letting me come in. Having to tell somebody no when I've already told somebody else yes, just awkward. And I really want to keep the focus on education and the aspirational aspects, giving these people one-on-one time with agents and editors who can potentially change their lives. If I start introducing commerce, with bringing in vendors, I could see hurt feelings and politics. Just having, I can't say yes to everybody because we don't have the space. So I'm going to have to start picking and choosing, and then I could be rightly accused of choosing sides. I just don't want to get into that discussion. I've got enough work to do without fighting a battle on that front.
So is a writers' conference something you think every aspiring writer or aspiring author, because I don't really think there is such a thing as an aspiring writer. You either write or you don't. But is a writers' conference something every aspiring author should attend?
Absolutely, and as many of them as possible. Lord knows mine isn't the only fish in the sea. There are lots of great opportunities to learn the craft, but also learn the industry, learn the business side. And that's what these writers' conferences, if they're done well, do so well, is to teach you not just craft, but the business side, so that you have your eyes opened, and you're not. Gosh, we get so many newbies who come to us and they say, "Oh, well, I've self-published my book and it didn't sell very well, so now I want to get an agent because they'll be able to, get my book in front of a real publisher who'll be able to, sell more copies than I was able to on my own." And so when I hear those stories, and I hear them all the time, clearly they didn't do their homework, when they made the decision to self-publish. They didn't know what they were doing. They've spent money probably unwisely. They've got themselves into a bit of a jam. And now they think, that somebody else is going to be able to rescue this book. And 9 times out of 10, the industry doesn't want to have anything to do with it because the book is already out there. And most of them don't want to have to republish and deal with copyright issues and deal with the books that are already in circulation. So that's a big educational step for these people to realize, okay, that one's done, but I have other books inside me, and now I know how to go forward. And if I decide to self-publish my next one, at least I'll have my eyes open and I'll know more of what I need to be concerned with, need to be doing. And if I want to get traditionally published, I have some option. And either one is fine. There's nothing wrong with self-publishing as long as you do it right. As long as you're producing a book that's well edited with an attractive, appealing cover, and that's formatted correctly. There's nothing at all wrong with that.
What's the biggest pitfall you've seen writers or authors fall into?
The one and done, to finish their first draft and think, I'm finished. The book's ready. It could not be improved in any way. I think that's the biggest problem that most writers have, is that impatience to see it out there in the world and to be making money on it, which is a whole nother discussion. But that impatience to just get it out there before it's ready. That's, I've got certain books that of mine that I talk about much more than other books because I probably rush, 1 or 2 titles out a little sooner than I should have. And one book in particular comes to mind because I wanted to get it out there, and I was excited about it, but it could have used a little more time in the easy bake oven. And, so I think every writer falls into that trap now and then, no matter how many books you get out. You're either under deadline or you are just so eager to see the story in print. Maybe you haven't had a new book out for a while. So you say, okay, this is good enough. And it's true that perfection is the enemy of what's good enough. But sometimes what's good enough could be made better with just a little bit more effort, a little bit more attention, and some input from some other people who can point out what you might be blind to as the writer of the work. So I think that's the biggest problem that most writers share is rushing it out into the world when you can use a little more time developing.
Well, I have a feeling this conversation could go on for quite some time, but we have come to the point in the show where I give everyone a chance to give out their social media contact information. And you're welcome to give out not only yours, but if you'd like to so, also the Atlanta Writers Conference or Club, or both.
Well, thank you. Readers and writers can discover me online at George Weinstein, that's Weinstein. George is the traditional spelling, George. So GeorgeWeinstein.com. They can read the first chapter free of any of my books, and I've got freebies there as well, videos that are related to my works, other books that are related. So it's an opportunity to discover my work there. If they are interested in the Atlanta Writers Conference, then the URL is easy. It's AtlantaWritersConference.com, and they'll see a post there for our November 3rd and 4th, 2017 conference with links to all the relevant information about that conference. And there's an email address they can write me on the conference pages if they have any questions. And, I hope people will take an interest in that and take advantage of opportunities to improve their knowledge and put themselves on the path toward their writing goals and aspirations. And I really thank you for this time, Jesse. This has been great. Look forward to spending many more hours with you in the coffee shop.
Well, you are welcome back anytime. I always love repeat guests, especially when they've got a new book to talk about. All right, in that note, all of you trying to track me down, you can find me on Twitter at Jesse's POV. You can find the coffee shop at jessescoffeeshop.com. That is JESSIES coffeeshop.com. Or you can shoot me an email at the station, Jesse, JESSIE at KLRNradio.com. Now it is time for me to snatch Aftermath off the table, pour myself a cup of coffee, and settle down with a great book. And I will see folks next time in the coffee shop.